We're at the archives of Falconry in Boise, Idaho. It's April 2023. Mark Upton has been kind enough to join me to tell us about his favorite falcon. Mark?
Yeah, my favourite falcon was a peregrine tiercel called Oliver Twist. Now, I came about him in a roundabout way. The year he was bought, my father bred him, and he was actually the first peregrine my father bred, and he was really looking forward to having him himself. And his mother was a big female peregrine called Rona, who was a gift to my father from Christian from Germany, and he tried for a long time to breed from her with another a tiercel that he was given by Christian a few years earlier than Rona, who was, I think, probably his favourite hawk of all time, and he called him Christian after Christian Czar. What we didn't realise at the time was Christian, the hawk Christian, was infertile, and the year that he bred the tiercel Oliver Twist, she was still in the pen with the tiercel Christian, but we had her AI'd by Martin Jones, a falconer in the UK, who's a big breeder, and he AI'd her, and she had one egg, which they hatched, and they brought up beautifully, and it was this tiercel. And because it was the first one he'd bred, he was desperate, and he loved tiercels. He was over the moon this tiercel had been hatched, and really happy about it, and was looking forward greatly to training it. And in his mind, it was going to be a star because of the parents and everything. And at that time, we didn't know the father was the tiercel Christian was infertile. So it was, we were hopeful that it was actually his and not the AI tiercel. But anyway, and another friend gave us another tiercel, or let it be known that he'd give us another tiercel, which was going to be for me. And this was going to be my first ever peregrine. I'd flown a Barbary before, a grouse, who was reasonably successful, but this was going to be my first pure peregrine. And we organised to hack them, and they went to a chap called James Wiggins, who'd done a lot of hack for this Martin Jones. He was a great character and very good at hack. And so these two tiercels were taken up and put out on hack with a number of other peregrines, peregrine falcons. I think these were the only two tiercels. And they'd been out probably a week, I suppose, and we got a phone call. We'd been up to see them, but then we got a phone call from James, who was hacking them, and said, "I'm really sorry, but I haven't seen one tiercel for 2 days." And at that time we weren't quite sure which one it was, but I hadn't seen it. And after a couple of days they worked out which one it was, and it was actually my father's tiercel, the one that became Oliver Twist. And I was sitting pretty, my tiercel was still there. My father was incredibly depressed. And then it came to the time where most of the other falcons were out, they'd been out a few days longer, so they were due to be caught. And James rang me and said, "What do you want to do, Mark? Because your father's tiercel, he's been gone a long time now." This was 2 weeks later. It's very unlikely that he'll reappear, that something happened to him, and we can trap your tiercel. It's a few days earlier than he should be caught, but we could trap him up while we're trapping up the falcons, and you'll have your tiercel. Or we can risk leaving him out longer on his own, which isn't really a good idea on hack, and he might just draw back in the other tiercel if he ever reappears. What do you want to do? So I said, well, I saw how depressed my father was and things, and I said, no, just leave him out for a bit longer. So we left him out on his own, and he was going about. I actually went up and watched him one day, and he was fine. Spent most of the day sat in the tree, but he was fine. He was there. And then eventually we decided, no, we're going to have to catch him, because this other tiercel hadn't been seen, and we were really risking leaving one out so late on its own. So James loved trapping them. He was a trap maker, and he did all these different traps made of wood, that would set themselves off just by the weight of a stick in them and things. And he was all ready to set it up. And we went up there, and the trap was all ready, and very excitingly this tiercel came down and bang, trap went, and we had him. And it was the other tiercel that hadn't been seen all this time.
Oh, really?
And we never saw my tiercel ever again.
Oh, no.
So anyway, because it was my father's tiercel that was trapped, and mine was still out, and we thought we would get him in a day or two. Oliver Twist came home with us, and my father started training him as his hawk. After a week, the other one hadn't been seen again, and was never ever seen again. So, but anyway, after a week, my father said, "No, it's pretty unlikely we're going to get him. You're going to have this one." And I knew this was, a hell of a decision for my father, because it was his first ever homebred peregrine. But anyway, he was kind enough to give him to me, and I took him over and carried on the training. And he trained so fast. He knew everything. He'd obviously, all the time he was lost, he'd been out killing. That's why he wasn't coming back to Hackside.
Yeah.
And he knew everything. It was like training a passage hawk. And it was so fast, and he was relaxed. He was confident. He'd hardly ever bait. You could carry him around amongst friends who'd come to the house, and he just looked at them, and the training went too fast. There was still a good spell of time before taking him up north to Scotland, because I'm a grouse falconer, and he was going to be flown at grouse. And I had to slow him up. I had to think of, sort of stop flying him to the lure, because I don't like doing too much lure training, and just sort of chill out and relax and not do too much with him. And it's awfully tempting, as you know, to keep doing a bit more, because it's exciting. You've got a young hawk, you want to get it going, but we can't start hawking in Scotland until the 12th of August when the season opens. Anyway, we got up there for the 12th, and he was ready to go. He'd flown loose. He was fine. The very first day, we were showing with Umberto Caproni that year, and he had a very good, really nice falcon called Laura, who was a year older and had started very well. And we went out and we flew my father's older hawks, and we flew Laura, and then we got a point. And this was on a moor on the north coast of Scotland called Sandside. And we got a point, and I flew the tiercel, and he did the usual first time hawk, but it was on quite a nice slope, so though he was swinging about a bit, not knowing what to do, he had a bit of lift, and he got up a little bit, and blow me, it was a cock pheasant. Now, where that cock pheasant had come from, I don't know, because you don't get cock pheasants on grouse moors, but anyway, it was a cock pheasant. And he stooped, but didn't make contact. And so next day we went out, and we got a point early for him. They told me to go first, so I was using a lovely little bitch my father's called Slick. She found, and she was a hot flusher. When you wanted a flush, which is what you want for a young hawk. Anyway, she had a nice point, and he'd obviously learned from this pheasant, because he actually got up to quite a good pitch, 200 feet or something. For the first time, it was nice. And flushed the grouse, and it was a single. And really, you don't want a single bird to get up on your first flight. And it was an old bird, even worse, which invariably singles are. Anyway, he stooped and he made contact and killed it. And that was the first grouse he ever saw, and he killed. So, my first peregrine, first grouse he saw, he killed. I was over the moon.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And that tiercel, he sort of double pitch every day for the first week. And he killed, I think, 7 or 8 grouse in that first week. And he never ever looked back for the whole of his life. Yeah.
I feel privileged that I got to actually see him fly.
Yeah.
And was over visiting you. It was quite windy when I was there the day we were flying, but he flew well.
Yeah, I think that was his 2nd or 3rd season.
Yeah. Oh, was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. He was interviewed.
Yeah. But I think I can't remember all the figures, but I think in the first season, I had a short season, which was not good really for a young hawk, but I was still, I think I was still at art school probably. I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
He killed, I think, 20 grouse in 25 flights. And by the end of the season, well, I can remember the last day of that season for me, we had a big joint day, and the Italian falconers, the other Italian falconers, Fricky and Falco, were there, and they had, especially Fricky, had a hawk called Radio Duo, which is Radio 2. And she was a passage brookie falcon, and she could really fly and wait on high. And Christian Czar was there with good hawks, my father, and Falco Tosti with good falcon, and Bud Caproni with this Laura, who was very good. And we had a long afternoon flying all these hawks, and we had one dramatic flight after another. But he killed his last grouse on that day from a pitch for, we're only estimating in those days, but it was high. You could hardly see him. And the other great flight of the day was this Radio Duo of Fricky's, who was probably the same pitch. And all the others were not much lower. You know, it was a good afternoon, and I think we killed 5 brace of grouse. And a lovely way for me to end that season. And I like ending on a kill. Sometimes, some seasons.
How many seasons did you fly, Oliver Twist?
He killed his last grouse when he was 18.
18 years old.
Yeah, yeah. He lived to 23. But the last couple of seasons, I mean, he'd kill grouse and he'd kill them well, but he was cunning, and he wasn't going the great pitches. I mean, he flew great pitches until he was about 15. But then, I suppose they get lazier, and they know they can kill. Yeah. And he in the last season, he was only going sort of, even on a really high day, it was only about 500 feet. But he knew
how to do it.
He knew how to do it, and he probably killed them more efficiently then than earlier years when it was all about style.
And I tell people that, you know, the falconer who is the one that wants the style, the bird just wants the success.
Yeah.
And the falconer is the coach trying to get the style that he wants to see, but the birds know how to do it. And you know, and a good game hawk, you know, they'll settle into where they know what works best.
Yeah, and actually, grouse are easier from 500 feet. I mean, I can remember in his second year he went probably the highest extreme pitches. On a lot of days we saw where he was in the sky. He was so high.
Tiercels are wonderful.
But that in Scotland, where there's lots of cover and grouse fly low, they were often not. I mean, he still got a good score, but they were often into a bank of a lake or something before he ever got to them.
Yeah.
But I think a second year tiercel of that quality, he's just flying for the hell of it. And I can remember one day that season, we had a really important guest out, a big businessman, but he appreciated hawking, and we flew on like a dome of ground. And we were right on the top of it, and it was evening time, and it was a beautiful sunset, and this tiercel, he was a really good pitch, and coming down in his stoop, he span all the way, and as he span, the light flashed on his chest, and then levelled out right in front of us, and bang, and all the feathers caught the sunlight as he hit his grouse, like a painting, and flowed back over us. And yeah, you never ever forget days like that. And that tiercel, I've had, well, everything I've flown since except one was related to him, because he bred well. And we actually bred with this falcon of Umberto's called Laura, who was nearly as good. So I'm now on 5th generation, and you can see the same characteristics in the flying as Oliver. So he's
amazing.
Yeah. But I think the great thing about him, I was beginning. I knew quite well, I probably thought I knew more than I did, but I did know quite a lot, because though I hadn't flown an awful number of hawks because of school and things, I'd been going hawking since the age of 4 with my father, grouse hawking in Scotland, and all these other characters. So I'd learnt a lot by watching them. But that tiercel taught me everything. He taught me more than I taught him. And God, I mean, I'd love him again. Now I know more. I might be able to fly him even better. But he taught me everything, and I think you only get one like that in your lifetime. Yeah. And he lived with me as well. He used to sit in the studio. I even wonder now, because life is busier, and I check, I still got good hawks, and I enjoy flying them, but you sort of go in and out to the Mews during the day and things. I'm too busy with young family and work and things. I don't spend the time with them that I used. That first hawk, I spent all my time with, and he used to enjoy being with me.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful story, and I really thank you for sharing that with us. And it's nice that we were able to sit down together and discuss your favorite bird, Oliver Twist. And we all have one bird in our falconry career that is special to us and dear to our heart. And when it's a bird that flies so well and performs so well, it makes it even more special.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that you were able to come hawking with us and see him, Steve.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.